Hello everyone, my name is Yudi Prasetyo. I will explain about opinion about Mr. Prabowo Subianto. Okay, Prabowo Subianto is a figure who is often in the spotlight in the Indonesian politics as a former general and chairman of the Gerindra party. He has a significant influence in the country's political landscape. Some people admire his leadership, especially in terms of firmness and vision the development. However, there has also been criticism directs of his military background and some of the controversies involving him in the past. Uh, his supporter may him his supporter may see him a figure capable of bringing about change, while skeptic and human rights. Overall, he is complex figure in and is import, important part of the current politics dynamic of Indonesia. On the other hand, there is controversy that may accompanies his career about his term of this military past and a number of political decisions. Some people question his track record regarding to human rights issues, even though it has never been proven in court. This remains a sensitive issue, especially for those who support human rights protection and military reforms. What do you think about him? Thank you.
Well, here I will explain about the adverb of frequently, how to use verb correctly and use them in sentence. Okay, the understanding frequently as an adverb. Okay, adverb of frequently express how frequently an activity or event take place. What frequently this term aids in giving more specific details regarding the frequency or intensity of an activity, typically in the sense that it occurs frequently but not always. Okay, here there is a meaning of adverb frequently. What are frequency adverbs? Adverb of frequency are descriptive words that describe a few frequent occurrence of particular event. Okay, this article provides information about her characteristic or frequency of a particular activity or study. An example of a frequency capture will be always, usually, frequently, something, and never. Okay, this description I used to illustrate routines, habits, or repetitive action. For this reason, it is very important in English. Okay, whether it be in writing. Okay, let me see example adverbs of frequency. Okay, this is always indicates that something happen all the time. She wakes up around 6 in the morning, for instance. Okay, for usually a frequency occurrence. For example, they frequently drink coffee in the morning. Okay, for example, they frequently drink coffee in the morning. Okay, indicates frequently that an action occurs frequently, but not always. Okay, For example, he routines visit the library. Okay, for example, he routines visit the library. Okay, for the often, okay, indicates that something occur on a regular basis. Okay, for example, we frequently visit the park on the weekend. Okay, for example, we frequently visit the park on weekends. Okay, let me see. Sometimes. Okay, indicate a frequency. For example, she sometimes read before going to bed. Okay, rarely. This means that something happens. Okay, in frequently they really eat out. Okay, never means that the activity does not occur at all. Okay, for example, he has never smoked. Okay, will be next adverb of frequency. Show you the frequency. Something within a certain period of our time. It takes the question how many times in a certain period. Okay, or how frequent. Common adverbs of frequently include always, never, and sometimes. Okay, definite the frequency. Tell exactly the frequency of something they will usually go at the end the sentence. For example, I go to the dentist every month. Indefinite frequent, a type of adverb that does not show the exact frequency. It gives general information about how often something happens. Okay, for example, she never wears neon clothes. Okay, will be next to the function of frequency adverbs. Okay, adverb of frequency are useful for describing routines or habits since they show how frequently an action or activity is performed, providing activity in activities with context. Okay, this adverb enhances the clarity of sentence by adding frequency information, which help to put activities in context. Okay, improving communication clarity. A frequency adverb aid in the more precise and clear communication information, which is crucial in both everyday writing and conversation. Okay, using frequency order. Why is frequency order important? Why? Knowing the frequency order helps speaker and writers indicate how often an action or habit, okay, occurs. It adds clarity in communication, especially when discussing routine habits or expectation. Using the frequency order in sentence. Using this order help convey the intensity or regularity of someone's habits more clearly. For example, I always drink coffee in the morning. Means that having coffee in the daily habit, never miss it. Okay, and something drink coffee in the morning means the action happened only occasionally. Okay, adverb of frequency are generally placed before the main verb. Always, she always arrived early. Okay, with the verb to be, adverb comes after. He is always on time. Knowing the order of frequency improve clarity in writing and conversation, especially when describing schedules, routines, or rules. Okay, I have indefinite frequency. Indefinite adverb of frequency is type of the adverb does not show the exact frequency. That adverb of frequency work to give general information about how often something happens. Okay, this show the adverb. This list show the adverb of frequency and their corresponding percent to show the difference in the frequency or level of frequency. Okay, always let me see this. Always is a 100%. Okay, for usually is the 90%. Okay, here are some sentence example that include in definite adverb of frequency. Okay. For example, I always feel happy when playing. For example, John seldom drink apple juice, or she never wears a dress. Okay. Okay. We next. Where do adverb of frequency appear in sentence? Where? For example, you are frequently sick. Frequency adverb in English appear in the different part of the sentence. Okay, where do adverb frequency appear sentence? The adverb frequently express how frequently an activity or even takes place. What frequently? This term H is giving more specific detail regarding the frequency or intensity of an activity. Okay, typically in the sense that it occurs frequently but not always. Okay, adverb of frequency are usable for describing routines or habits, since they show how frequently an action or activity is performed. This adverb enhances the clarity of sentence by adding frequency information, okay, which help to put activity in context. See, let me see the always. Okay. Always, the adverb always mean that an action happen every time without exception. It indicates the highest level of frequency and implies consistency and reliability. Okay, using in sentence. For example, she always bring her notebook to class. Okay, implies that she never forget her notebook. Okay, number 2, he is always on time for work. Okay, this suggests that punctuality is a constant habit for him. Okay, number 3, I always drink water thing in the morning. I always drink water first thing in the morning. It indicates a daily interrupted habit. A passing in space used to emphasize the frequency or dependability of an action. For example, he always keeps his promise. Variation and synonym, similar present convey near 100% frequency include constantly, every time, and without fail. Okay? For example, she constantly checks her email. Okay? For example, without fail, he calls it his parents every Sunday. Every Sunday. Practice is simple. You can learn from work, from your house. My friend always help me with my homework. They always arrive early to avoid traffic. The store always opens at 9 a.m. Okay, using always effectively in sentence add clarity and emphasis, making it ideal for expressing unbroken patterns and dependable action. Will be next usually. Usually the adverb usually describe action that occur most of the time. It suggests regularity with occasional exceptions and is commonly used to talk about routines, habit, and expectation. Okay, using in sentence, number one, she usually drink coffee in the morning. Okay, indicates that this her regular habit. Though sometimes he might skip it. Okay. Number two, they usually walk to work. But if it rains, they take the bus, implying a preference for walking with some flexibility. Okay. Number three, I usually finish my assignment before dinner. Okay, so that this is the typical pattern. It may vary occasionally. Okay. Placement in sentence. Placement in sentence before the main verb in most sentences usually is placed directly before the main verb. For example, he usually exercise after work. After auxiliary or modal verbs, when usually appears with auxiliary or modal verbs, am, is, are, can, will, it comes directly after auxiliary verb. Okay. For example, they are usually early to meeting. Okay, at the start or finish of sentence to highly a point. To emphasize the frequency, the word usually can occasionally be used at the beginning or conclusion of a statement. Okay. For instance, usually I read a book before going to sleep. Okay, will be next. The usually common context for usually describe regular behavior or activities. I usually go to the gym after work. Usually after work. That indicates this is a regular habit, so sometimes she may skip it. Number two, helpful for explaining frequent tasks or obligation. She usually arrives 5 to minutes early to set up. Number three, leisure and social activities, often used to describe activity to regularly, but not really regularly. Okay. For example, they usually spend Sunday with family. Okay. Comparison with other adverbs of frequency always implies absolute frequency with no exception. Okay. For example, I always lock the door before leaving. Versus I usually lock the door before leaving. Frequently, slightly less regular than usually, and suggests a common occurrence without as much contentment. For example, she frequently reads in her free time versus she usually reads in her free time. Variation and synonym for usually. Synonym, typical, generally, commonly, regularly. For example, they typically arrive early for meeting. Example, practice sentence. I usually wake up early to prepare for the day. For example, they usually celebrate birthday with a family gathering. Number two, we usually take a vacation in the summer. Okay, will be next to often. The adverb often describe frequent occurrence of even or X, although it permits fluctuation in frequency. It denotes a consistent occurrence. Okay. Using in sentence. Number one weekend he frequently spent time with his grandparents. Suggests that visiting in common practice, but he may not in every weekend. Okay, number two, they often go hiking in the mountains during summer. Okay, indicate the hiking is a frequent activity, particularly in summer. Number three, I often forget where I put my keys. Implies that forgetting happens regularly. Okay, though is not guaranteed. Before the main verb, often is usually positioned before the main verb. In sentence, for instance, she often play tennis after work. For instance, she often always tennis after work. Following auxiliary or modal verbs often follow auxiliary or modal verbs directly. Take the statement. They can often be found at the cafe. Assertion often can also be used to highlight a point at the beginning or the end of a statement. Take the statement. Often I take a walk in the evening. Typical use of often. Daily activity describe consistent routines and habits. I often check my email during the day. For example, I often check my email during the day. Okay, a workplace behavior, a pursuit of work talking, a standard producer of behavior in formal context. For example, she often collaborates with her colleagues on projects. Social interaction indicate the frequency of social event or activities. For example, we often go out for dinner on Friday. Okay. The comparing with other frequency adverb usually suggests greater consistency often, as it denotes a higher frequency. I usually have coffee in the morning. Opposite to, I often have coffee in the morning. More regularly is implied by the word frequently than by often. Synonym abbreviation by often. Frequently, routinely, repeatedly, and commonly are synonyms. For example, he regularly visits the gym. The synonym can have similar meaning, but somewhat change to stands common connotation. Okay, a sentence to practice. For example, I often read before going to sleep. I often read before going to sleep. Okay? They often host parties for their friends. We often take family vacation during the summer. The slightly often or express parity often permits periods of events. It's a helpful adverb for generalizing habits or routines since it indicates that something. Of course, frequently, yet if the frequency might vary. Okay, useful advice. When you use often, remember that this frequency level is adjustable. Okay, it's excellent. It's an excellent option for characterizing everyday behavior, with suggesting they are fixed or travel. With the next rarely, the adverb rare description, action, or occurrence that happen infrequently. These words suggest that while such behavior may happen, they are extremely uncommon and not at all typical. Sentence using. He rarely eats fast food. Number two, he rarely goes out on the weekdays. Number three, I rarely use transportation. Sentence placement before the principal verb rarely frequently appears in sentence just before the primary verbs. As an illustration, they rarely watch TV. Following the modal and auxiliary verbs rarely is used immediately following the modal or auxiliary verb. As an illustration, he is rarely seen without his camera. Okay, he is rarely seen without his camera. An action rarity at the start of a statement. Action rarity of such a statement. As an illustration, I rarely eat dessert. This formal structure hide infrequent frequency. Rare in general context, uncommon habits apply to actions that are extremely uncommon or uncommon. And actually might be I rarely sleep past midnight. Work and school good for describing activities or occasions that don't usually fit into a regular timetable. Sometimes denotes a frequency that is higher than rarely. Okay? The statement I sometimes read at night contrasts with the statement I rarely read at night. Never denotes that nothing happens at all, whereas rare denotes that an action in common but not impossible. For example, I rarely eat sugary foods is somewhat different from I never eat sugar foods. Synonym and verb is the synonym seldom, hardly ever, and sometimes. The statement he hardly ever travel out of town. The synonym can give an expression more diversity without substantially altering their meaning. Next, never. I used to indicate that an action or even does not occur at all. With a frequency of 0%, it conveys absolute negation, meaning that something does not happen under any circumstance. You say the sentence, I never drink coffee. She never arrived late to meeting. Number 2, they are travel during the winter. Placement in sentence. Placement in sentence before the main verb never generally placed before the main verb in the sentence. For example, he never watched horror movies. He never watched horror movies. After auxiliary or modal verbs, when used with auxiliary or modal verb, never follow these verbs. For example, she has never been to Japan. Beginning of a sentence or for emphasis, never, can also be placed at the beginning of the sentence for strong emphasis. For example, never have I seen such a beautiful sunset. This structure passes for a complete negation in the formal tone. Common context for never. Absolute habit used to describe action that the speaker does not do at all. For example, I never eat meat. I never eat meat. Personally, belief and values. Never often expression from belief or personal policies. For example, she never lies. Boundaries and restriction suitable for expression that are probably prohibited or personally avoided. For example, they never allow pet inside at the house. Example and practice sentence. Number 1, I never go swimming in the winter. Number 2, they never eat fast food. 3, we never skip family gatherings. Passing absolute absence with never. Never is a strong verb that convey a complete law of occurrence. It is useful for making definite statement about action or behavior that are constantly avoided or habit. When using for emphasis, you can put the adverb at the start or end of the sentence for emphasis. For example, sometimes I wear a glass. Usually, I wake up at 7 a.m. I ride my bicycle sometimes. In question form, when writing interrogative sentence, always place the adverb before main verb and after the subject. For example, do you regularly curl your hair? Does Bobby usually lose her things? For example, do I always fidget unconsciously? Okay. One exception for the rule is that you should never use seldom, rarely, and never in question form. Maybe enough for me. Thank you for your attention, and I hope my grid helps you understand my types, rules, and definition on adverb of frequency, especially their placement in sentence. Remember that an adverb of frequency answer how often or how many times in context period It has two types: adverb or definite frequency and adverb of definite frequency, and an adverb of indefinite frequency gives a general idea for frequency, while an adverb of indefinite frequency offers the specific frequency. Thank you.